quite a few teachers who would have joined us since the inception of this pandemic. And having joined us in this pandemic, would have to now try to adjust to this new way of teaching, this new way of looking at information. So we're happy that you're here, and we have a plate filled with concepts that we want to share with you in our session today. Before we go any further though, I just want to invite the presence of the Lord to be with us. So at this time, we're going to just invite Mr. Shauna Tennant to open with a word of prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let us pray. Welcome, Holy Spirit. We are in your presence. Fill us with your power. Live inside of us. Our most righteous and eternal Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for sparing our lives yet another day. We want to thank you for forever guiding us, for being with us, for carrying us, for lifting us up. We want to thank you for everything that you have done for us, oh Lord. Lord, each and every one of us has sinned and come short of your glory. And I ask that you forgive us of any sins that we might have done, known and unknown. Lord, we are in a pandemic, and I'm asking you to bless and guide each and every family of the persons here on this meeting today, oh Lord. Lord, we have our new teachers in front of you. They are entering the system. They're entering a new norm where everything is now online. I ask you to grant them strength. I ask you to grant them vigor so that any situation that they might meet upon in this challenging time, they will have the knowledge and understanding to get through this. Lord, I pray for the presenter this afternoon. I pray that as he delivers the information to us, I pray that we accept it and we receive it and we understand it. Bless us, continue to guide us, continue to give us the necessary knowledge, the necessary activities, and whatever we need to help our students in our classroom. Be with us. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Ms. Tennant. That was Mr. Shauna Tennant, mathematics coach in Region 5. All right, so before we get any further with our session today, and again, I'm really happy that you are here. You can just leave your name and school in the chat so that we can know that who is with us today. All right, so some ground rules for us today during the session. We want you to keep your mics closed. There will be times when I will allow for persons to speak and to share. I just ask that you utilize the raise hand feature. I have with me Miss Michelle Townsend, cluster-based math specialist, who will be monitoring the chat as well as working with the persons who want to speak to us by the raise hand feature. Ms. Townsend, you can just open the mic, open the camera if you need to, and just say something to our participants so they know which voice to listen out for every now and again.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, teachers. And just to add my quote of welcome, so this is the voice that you will hear.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Ms. Townsend. All right, so colleagues, I want you to utilize the raise hand feature. If you look to the bottom of your screen, depending on what you're using, you might see a reaction icon. If you go to the reaction icon, you should be able to come across the raise hand feature there, among other symbols as well. And for those who are using a tablet or a phone, you may want to look for 3 vertical or 3 horizontal dots that will bring you to the option to raise your hand. So with that said, let us get on the show. I just want to add one more bit. Please don't have me here talking to myself. I really want you to participate with me. So once I ask a question or you want to share something, please let us utilize the raise hand feature so we can speak to each other. It's really a conference. We want to be able not just to have you hear me, but to also allow you to share your thoughts, your ideas as well. So this is an open space where we can all learn together. So with that said, let us get on with today's session. So I'm going to start off by really pulling on your thoughts a bit. And it is quite unconventional, but here we go. So I'm going to present to you two situations, two movies. We have movie A and we have movie B. I want you to, based on the information provided, just type in the chat which movie you prefer to watch. And you can call it movie A, movie B, it's already labeled. So we have movie A and we have movie B. Now, for each movie, it's just its title and the duration of the movie. In the chat, all I ask that you do is type the movie that you would prefer to watch. So if you had to pick only one to watch based on the title and whatever other information that might appeal to you, just put in the chat the movie that you would prefer. So while you're making your selection, movie A is titled The Adventures of Thomas the Inventor, and the duration is 82 minutes. Movie B is Do-It-Yourself Cooking Cuisine. Its duration is 45 minutes. So I am just going to also take a peek into the chat for myself as well. And I'm seeing that we have a mixture of responses so far. We have movie A, we have movie B. So you're going about selecting the movie that you want to watch. All right, I'm liking this so far. Now, at this point in time, is there anyone, I'm sure a few persons may want to share. So is there anyone who would want to just share with us why it is that you would select the movie that you chose? Why did you select movie A if you select the movie A, and why movie B? So please utilize the raise hand feature. Don't have me here by myself. I see you're doing a good job in indicating your movie, but let me hear from you. Okay. What could have been your thoughts?
Okay, Mr. Edgel, I have Carla Manning Brown.
Yes, please go ahead.
Ms. Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. I selected movie A because it tells us about adventure, and in being adventurous, you have to explore and invent things. So you go out, you get your information, you find out what's wrong, what's not wrong, and what to fix, and how to get to the end result.
Thank you. That's quite interesting. Thank you.
Okay, there's also another hand from Miss Melrose Haslam. Go ahead, Miss Haslam.
I chose movie B. Reason being, I would actually prefer to watch something that I can learn something from, like something I can actually learn how to do something myself. Even though it's very important to actually watch success of others and so forth, if I had to choose, I'll choose to watch something that I can learn something to help to uplift myself.
Thank you. That's quite an interesting response. All right, before I move on, is there anyone else who would like to share why they made their selection in the movie that they chose? All right.
Okay, there is another hand from Miss Dennis, Shannon Dennis. Go ahead, Miss Dennis.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I chose movie A because I grew up around cooking. I grew up around chefs and all sorts of things. So therefore, it wouldn't be anything new to me. So I prefer to watch something else.
Wow, no, that's a very powerful response right there. You grew up around cooking already, so you want a change. Thank you so much, colleagues, for sharing your responses. I really like where it's going. So where I want to take your attention now is looking back at your motivations for selecting a particular movie. So everyone who selected a movie, you know why you are drawn to the movie. It could be because of something that piqued your interest. It could be that you want to learn something. And maybe there's someone else in the background who's saying, you know, I don't think I sit and watch something for 82 minutes. Maybe I might watch something for 45 instead. But there are various factors that will play into your interests, as well as how relevant you see something for you. And I want to take this and draw a parallel with the classroom as well. We know that our students, they have been shifted from a face-to-face setting and they're now placed in the virtual space. But the virtual space is not quite new to the students. I want you to remember that before this, there were always television shows. There were always something that students would want to go and watch. And if you reflect on your own experience too, there might have been a series or something that you would watch. It's aired at a particular time, and every day you know that you need to come in on time in order to watch and engage in the session. The same can be said about how students feel about learning online. We need to look at things from the perspective of the student. We want them to come to class, we want them to be attentive, we want them to participate, but we have to also appeal to the interest of our students. And while appealing to their interest, we need to look to see also the things that we can adjust in a particular way so that the students see the relevance in what they're doing. So really, we want to look at that motivational side of things. Now, COVID-19 itself has indeed altered how we look at education. We used to be in the physical environment, and we are now asked to engage the same students in a virtual space. We are pioneers of this process because this is something that is new to all of us. And because it is new, you are being asked to really begin to shape what online learning will look like in the future. So we are the forerunners of this process. And we know that for many teachers, you being new teachers, you came into the system at a time when we are trying to settle into this virtual engagement. So the session today seeks to address 4 key areas that you must consider while you engage students in the virtual space. Even outside as well, but because we are now in the virtual space, I want to just highlight some critical areas that we should pay attention to. 1, we want to be able to look at assessment data and to see how we can use that data to guide our instructions. We want to look at the role of the math teacher in the virtual mathematics classroom. We want to look at how we go about modeling our expectations while in the virtual classroom. And finally, we want to look at effectively planning instructions for online delivery. So we have much that we want to offer you today. So I only ask that you pay attention and participate as much as possible. We have started off nicely with the first activity. Let us continue to build on that momentum in sharing your thoughts with us. So, effective use of assessment data. It is very important as educators that we don't just teach because the curriculum says we should teach, but we teach with the understanding of what students know, what they don't know, and what they need to know. It's very important as an educator that what you do in the delivery process is aligned to the needs of the students. So it means that we must be guided by data as we seek to engage our students on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to take you through an activity that should deepen how you think about data on a whole, and more so how we look at mathematics assessment. So let's start this way. Let us say that you have 3 students who sat on an assessment, and these are 3 different math assessments. You have test 1, test 2, test 3. We have 3 students here. We have Markadane, we have Geneva, and we have Alvina. Now, take a minute to look at the results and look at the test results. We had test 1 done first, then we did test 2, then we did test 3, and they're all mathematics assessments. At a glance, by looking at the chart itself, what can you say about the performance of the students? And barring any other factor, just looking at what is presented, what can we say about the students' performance? All right. So I'm going to give you a minute to look, and I'm sure once you're ready, you can share. Ms. Towns, I think there's a hand.
Well, yes, sir. There is a hand. Miss Williamson. Go ahead, Miss Williamson.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Just by looking at the data presented, it is evident that Alvina is improving because she was at 48, then she moved up to 70, then she's now at.
Thank you. Anyone else made that observation? You can also respond in the chat as well. Anything else that you picked up, and very, very good. That's indeed an appropriate observation right there based on what is presented to us. Any other
Nothing
teachers?
else in the
I think I see another hand.
Okay, I'm seeing another hand. Yes, yes. Go ahead, Miss Carla Brown.
All right,
Mrs. Brown?
I see that Marco Dane has improved in test 2, and in test 3, she fell back down. So it shows that there's not a level of consistency, but there could be various factors that causes such an
Oh my, I see that the mic went out, or is it on my side? Ms. Townsend, is it on my side?
No, sir, I don't think at this time it's our side. Oh, she's coming back in. Mrs. Brown? I think she went again.
Not hearing you right now, but what I heard you said earlier, Mrs. Brown, was there could have been factors that caused the fall off in performance based on the trend that is presented here. That's the idea behind what you're sharing. I'm hoping that I picked it up well before your voice went out. And I'm going to build on what Ms. Brown just said. There could be other factors, indeed, that impacts the performance of the students. And Mrs. Williamson, you were indeed correct on how you view the data. Because guess what? We look at math as math. When we hear math, we just consider it to be one thing. But I want you to really reflect on this statement I'm about to make. Mathematics is a broad area, and there are many topics in mathematics. So, given that they did 3 tests, they did 3 mathematics assessments, but here's the question. What would have been covered on those 3 assessments? Now, I'm going to reveal to you what the assessment was all about, and I hope to get some feedback from either the same persons who spoke earlier and additional persons too, because I really want to show you something. So I'm going to reveal to you what is going on with the tests. So test 1, test 2, test 3, they're all mathematics assessments. However, the test 1 was a number-based assessment. Test 2 was a statistics-based assessment, and test 3 was an algebra-based assessment. Now, I would love to hear from the same persons as well as additional persons, but how do you now feel about the data now that you know what the test is all about? I'll give you a minute. I'll give others some time to think of a response.
Okay, and I see Miss Dwyer. Hand is up. Go ahead, Miss Dwyer.
Good afternoon, everyone. So based on the different unit or strands that the tests were for, it shows that students are stronger in different areas or different units.
That's a great observation, and that is so true. I fully agree.
Okay, there is also Miss Dawn Braham. Your hand is also up. You go ahead, Miss Braham.
Okay, I was making the same observation. Based on the areas tested, it shows the students' strengths and weaknesses in different areas of mathematics.
Thank you so much. Now, the point that I want to bring across, and the persons who have responded so far, you have captured it. Earlier, I presented to you test 1, test 2, test 3, and we labeled it as a math test. But if we want to truly compare students' performance, we need to know the content of the assessment. So when you do an in-house test, you have to be careful about how you go about comparing it to the next test. Because if the content varies, then it's hard to compare performance on a test if it is that it's a different content set. So it's important to look closer at the data once you're going to make a decision. It's very important that you begin to understand that mathematics is the broad subject area, but there are so many strands in mathematics, and then the strands itself are then further broken down into topics. So I want there to be a takeaway that you have to look closer at the data. Continue to work with me on this now. Now, at a glance, here's the overall score for 2 students on a small multiple choice test. We have Kareem and Jessica. Kareem got 12 of 20 questions correct, and Jessica got 11 of 20 questions correct. And again, at a glance, and I'm saying at a glance, looking only at the raw score, the overall performance, what would you say based on what you see as the overall performance? How are these 2 students performing? Anyone? And again, it's not about being right or wrong. If you were to make a decision based on just the overall score, what would you say is going on with these 2 students' performance?
Okay, and right away, Miss Onisha Patterson, go ahead with your response.
All right, good afternoon, colleagues. At a glance, I would say that Kareem is performing better than Jessica, but as we know, that's not necessarily the case based on the strands that they would have done and how they would have been able to manipulate these different topics.
Indeed. Right. So thank you so much. I like what you said. Maybe I should pause. I don't know if there's another person who wants to share before I say anything. Just allowing for another person, just in case someone else has a thought to share on the matter. All right, if not, so I like what was just said. So if it is that we're to rely solely on the overall performance of the students, you'll find that it is easy. I would very well say right now that these 2 students are performing at the same level. That's what I would say, looking at the overall performance. And then I would want to intervene at a similar level because I see that both students are performing at a similar level in terms of 12 of 20 and 11 of 20. Just a little over 50% right there. So with this in mind, let us now look at the breakdown of the responses to the same assessment. So this time, the 20 question paper carries 3 strands: number, measurement, and statistics. Now look at the performance. There were 10 number questions, look carefully, and Kareem got 9 of those 10 questions correct, while Jessica got only 1. Then there were 5 measurement items. Kareem got 2 correct, Jessica got all 5 correct. And then finally, we have statistics where Kareem got 1 of 5 questions correct and Jessica 5 of 5. I'm sure you want to give me some feedback now. So how do you feel about the overall performance versus your understanding of the performance of students per strand? Anyone? How do you feel about this data and having seen it in more details?
Remember, you can also type in the chat.
While you think about it, okay, I see Ms. Pattinson again. Go ahead, Ms. Pattinson.
All right, sir. I would say, looking at the data, we can very well say that Jessica has grasped the concept really clearly when it comes on to measurement and statistics. However, she's struggling in the area of numbers, while Kareem has quite a good grasp on the number content. He's struggling, however, with measurements and statistics. So as a teacher, now I would want to find a way to bridge the gap. How am I going to get Kareem up to scratch? How am I going to get Jessica up to scratch when it comes on to the areas in which they are weak?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Is there another voice before I share?
Yes, there is. Miss Williamson. Go ahead, Miss Williamson.
Okay, and even to add to what was said previously, we could even let the students work together because Jessica could assist Kareem with measurement and statistical with numbers, so they could collaborate and work together.
Thank you so much. I fully agree. So yes, the students can learn from each other. Jessica being stronger in measurement and statistics can always help Kareem, and Kareem being stronger in the number strand can help Jessica. So I fully agree, Ms. Williamson. Thank you for that comment. Colleagues, so we're hearing then that there are also methods that we can apply to treat with the issues. But my takeaway point for you today on this matter is the overall performance does not give you a fulsome understanding, right, of what is taking place as it pertains to the student's performance. But when you begin to look closer at the breakdown of the data, you realize that there's much more that you can get. Now, let me tell you, if I was a teacher for these two students and you show me the overall score, you know what I would say? I would say that these two students are on par, working at the same rate, and they deserve to get the same treatment. That's what I would say. But then if you showed me a breakdown of the performance, I'd have to go back and change my statement. I'd have to now say, but wait, I can't apply the same approach to these two students. Their overall score may look the same, but their needs, they're different. So can you imagine you have Kareem and Jessica in a class doing intervention for number, and then poor Kareem in that class way ahead of the game. But because the overall score was used to determine the approach, we end up giving Kareem the wrong treatment. When truly, Kareem doesn't need intervention. Kareem needs enrichment, more that can push him to go deeper into the number concepts. These are things, colleagues, that I want you to think on when it comes on to looking at data. So from what we have done so far, is there anyone who wants to give me a sentence or a statement about how you believe we ought to look at performance data? And before I do so, there's a comment in the chat. Ms. Townsend, can you just read it for us, please?
Okay. So we have that's Miss Myers, I think, and it says Jessica has a better grasp in measurements and statistics, while Kareem is struggling in those same areas. Kareem is doing better in numbers, and so as a teacher, I will have to find another way to teach Kareem how to master the areas in which he is struggling.
Well said, Ms. Myers. Now, let us continue. Well said, though. What would be what is your thoughts? What are your thoughts on how we should look at assessment now, given those two activities earlier? Is there anyone who would want to just give me a sentence or two about how you feel we should look at assessment when we decide to formulate intervention for students? Anyone? Is there one person of our 90+ participants? Is there one person who just wants to share with us at this time before we move on? Nobody? All right, fine. Well, okay, I hand this up now, I think.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Miss Patterson. Go ahead, Miss Patterson.
I'm going to try this one. When we are giving our assessment, we should make sure that it is clear. We don't try to lean to one strand, but we stretch it across all the strands and also bear the taxonomy in mind. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that was a try.
Well, it's not what I'm looking. I'm not looking for a particular response. I want to know what you'd have taken away from the session so far. So, Ms. Patterson, I want to thank you for your feedback, because that is true. We can't be one-sided with our assessments. I'm going to build on your point. I like what you said, Ms. Patterson. We are supposed to ensure that our assessments match the scope of work that we covered. So you cannot say you taught 5 topics, and then you look at the test, it's just one topic dominate the whole test. And around the back, you just squeeze on 2 questions on the other side. Right? So we have to be very careful. So, Ms. Patterson, I like your point. Is there any other takeaway thought, though? If Ms. Townsend, go ahead.
Yes, sir. In the chat, we have Miss Reed. Miss Melissa Reed says, make sure that you assess students on what you teach.
Fair, that's also true. We must do so, right? And is there any comment that you think you need to make about how we analyze the data though? Is there anyone who wants to make a comment on how we should look at the data to help us to make a decision about how to treat the student needs? Are there any comments about overall score versus the breakdown of the strand before I move on?
Okay, and we have 2 hands so far. So I'm going to allow Ms. Williamson to go first.
Okay, so I would say when assessment, sometimes it is not good for us to just look at the overall score. So we have to split it into strands where we can see where each student struggles so that we can assess those areas. Because if we're looking at it, we might see a student get like say 8 out of 10 then, and we said, okay, that student is doing excellent, but there were 2 number questions on the paper and that student got the 2 number questions
incorrect.
Correct. So when we assess it based using on the strand, we will know where the students' weaknesses are and we can address those weaknesses.
All right, great, great. It sounds like I saw a hand earlier.
Yes, there Miss Lola Jackson had the hand up, but then she lowered, and now I
was going
see
to share
Miss
those
Roxanne. Oh, you were gonna share the same thoughts, so you lowered, but now I see Miss Roxanne Shaw. Go ahead, Shaw Blake. Go ahead, Miss Blake, Mrs. Blake.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, good afternoon.
We have to analyze the test items, and then we come up with an intervention based on the student's strengths and weaknesses. So we'd have to address each student's situation by itself.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your feedback. Truly appreciated. And I see that we're going indeed in the right direction. Now, there's much more to garner from assessment, but you know, we can't do everything all in one day. So I'm going to just invite you in your own time to go and look at Region 5 Mathematics Team YouTube page. On this page, you will find there is an entire workshop presentation that looks at using assessment data to inform intervention. That entire presentation is all about looking at assessment data, and in your own time, I advise that you go and watch it when you can. Ms. Townsend will share in the chat a link that you can copy and paste in a Word document for now and store it for later so that you can always go and access that link when you're ready. All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Townsend, for posting that in the chat for us. Now, moving on, let us say now that, fine, we have looked at our data set, and having analyzed the data, let us say that we have a teacher, and having analyzed this data, Ms. Grant in her class realized that, all right, most of my students have an issue with place value, converting proper fractions to improper fractions, perimeter and area, and writing algebraic expressions. So let's say that those 4 topics are the major troublesome topics in her class. But then, having done the assessment, the teacher is being told to cover the following topics over a 5-week cycle. Now, I wanted to analyze the topics that she ought to teach coming up, as well as look closely at the topics that are considered to be problematic for the students. So the top left-hand corner are the topics that are of an issue to the students, and on the right lower end, you will find the topics that they need to teach coming up over the next 5 weeks. Look at them carefully. Now, what I want you to tell me, let us say we are going to teach week 1. What are some things that we must be mindful of in approaching the teaching of the week 1 topic? Bear in mind, and again, just raise your hand when you're ready to speak, but if you're to teach week 1, let's say week 1 and week 2 topics, what do you need to be mindful of going forward to teach the students the week 1 and the week 2 topics? And again, on the left are the topics that we identified from the assessment to be the weaker topics for this class. Anybody willing, anybody want to take this on? Even in the chat? leave me out on an end here. No problem. Let's continue then. Okay, Ms. Patterson, please go right ahead.
Sir, I'm thinking that if I'm going to address these topics, I would first want to know what the children, the prior knowledge that they have coming into here. I'd like to take into consideration how well they can rename and regroup. And for multiplication and division, we are looking at how well they know their timetables and things of that nature.
Fair enough, fair enough. These are our other prerequisite knowledge that students must have coming into the lesson, right?
Good afternoon, everybody. Just to add to what she was saying, I would also take in consideration what kind of manipulative can be used to impact these subject areas.
That's great. We have to. I like where you're going with it. We have to also pull on what is necessary. Ms. Townsend, you want to add anything from the chat?
Yes, there is a comment in the chat from Ms. Myers, and she says children will first need to have an idea of the basics in relation to fractions.
Right, that is true. Now, it's very important that as we seek to engage our students, we must use assessment data to guide us. Now, if it is that these groups of students, having engaged them, they realize that the weak topics, so we know that there are other topics that need to be looked at, but it is evident already that place value is an issue, converting fractions is an issue, perimeter and area is an issue, and writing algebraic expression is also an issue. Then it means that before you can even go into the addition and subtraction, you need to, as a teacher, bear in mind that if throughout the process of doing any of these things, there needs to be the reliance on the child's ability to convert fractions, either from proper to improper or from improper to a mixed number, then it's important that in your teaching, before you begin to treat with the new topic, you must spend a little time and plan for and engage the students in the topic that you know is of a weakness to the students. All right? So let's try this again. What if you were to move on to the next topic? Let's say you're about to plan for week 3. Week 3, we're doing rounding numbers, we're doing estimation, rounding numbers to the nearest whole number, nearest 10, 100,000. Based on what you identify as a challenge, is there anything that you think coming from the challenges that will hamper the child's ability to effectively learn and carry out estimations and rounding off?
Okay, right away, Miss Lola Jackson, hand is up, and we also have another hand, but go ahead, Miss Jackson, and then Miss Dwyer will follow.
Okay, so I'm seeing that in week 3, they're supposed to be doing estimation and rounding numbers, but that can be a challenge if they don't know their place value, the place value system. So in order for us to ensure that they're at the level that they're supposed to be, first we need to tackle place value. And when we feel like they're okay with that, then we move on to estimation, which would incorporate place value.
Well said, well said. Thank you so much, Ms. Jackson. So it's important. Is another hand you want to call on Ms. Townsend at this time?
Well, I think she lowered her hand. Oh, she typed it in the chat. Oh, she was going to share the point that Ms. Jackson shared.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much. So it's important. You need to be able to use the data. So for Ms. Grant's class, the data itself that was picked up on is coming from an assessment. And if you know ahead of time that this is an issue, as you move towards your new topics to be taught, you need to assess the older topics. Look at what is a gap for the student and see how it's going to impact the topics to come. So that when you're going to prepare to plan for estimation, in the planning process for estimation, it's important that you don't just go and say, all right, we're going to go straight into estimation. The second you begin teaching the topic, what happens? students can't assimilate because they don't know their place value. And then you have to abandon the lesson that you planned and try to address the issue. But knowing ahead of time, based on assessment data, that the students have a place value issue, then you can embed that into your presentation to treat that issue right there. Thank you so much for that feedback so far. What about total surface area and of a solid? Anything that stands out to you at this point in time? You're about to prepare for week 4. Anyone? No? You're about to prepare for week 4. Is there anything that will impact this learning process coming from the list of topics identified to be a challenge to the students? No? I see we're silent on this one, on what's happening. Anyway, so I'm seeing that the chat is also going as well.
Okay, so this is where the responses are coming in. So Miss Dwyer says perimeter and area, and Kadina Roberts also says perimeter and area.
And you know, I can appreciate fully that you said perimeter and area, and not just area only. And let me say why. When we separate perimeter from area, the students don't get a chance to distinguish between those two. So I'm glad that you actually spent the time to say both perimeter and area, because perimeter and area for week 4, even though the focus will be on surface area, being able to distinguish between perimeter and area will be important, so that the child, in trying to find the total surface area, doesn't make a mistake or carry through the misconception of finding the perimeter of a face instead of finding the area of the face, right? So that's very important.
Also in the chat, sir, we do have Miss Johnson who shared the same sentiments that you did. Make sure that children know the difference between perimeter and area before attacking total surface area of solids. And Jenny Simpson-Hales would have said writing algebraic expressions as well. And Miss Williamson, Sanjita Williamson, they would need to teach the concept of perimeter and area first, then move to total surface area.
All right. I know I really appreciate the responses, even Mrs. Hales, in sharing expressions, because there will come a time as well when if a child can maneuver an algebraic expression, they'll be able to complete the expression for a solid where you have multiple faces to account for as well. So I'm really liking the feedback, and I get the picture that we understand that we have to use our assessment data to help us as we seek to teach new and emerging topics for our students. The final point on it is week 5, which is volume of solids, right? And when it comes down to volume of solids, you might come across the issue that there might not be anything linking to it directly, but once something links, you treat with it. If there's no direct link right away, you can go and proceed to teach a topic without interference. But it's important then that whenever you're going to teach and you have data on the student's performance, you ought to use the information, use your strand analysis to help you to know what to expect from your students as you teach new topics. Colleagues, I want to thank you so much for this segment of the presentation that looks at data analysis and using it to inform instruction. I just want to know if there are any major takeaways for you personally before I move on. So based on what I've done so far with data, I'm about to shift focus now, but is there anyone who would like to share 1 or 2 things that you would have taken away from this aspect of the presentation so far? I'll just pause a minute, see if there's anyone willing to share, and then we'll just move right ahead. I take it that we're still internalizing our takeaways. And you can also type in the chat as well.
Okay, and there we go in the chat, sir, from Miss Dwyer. Data from assessment should be looked at in details.
Fully agree. I am for you with that one 100%. Thank you so much for your feedback, colleagues. So let us continue. So having looked at the data assessment, we want to look at the role of the math teacher in the virtual classroom. It's very important that we understand that there's a shift going on. And, you know, I want to start off by being a little more open with you. So I know for some, you might have just left teaching practice and gone into the teaching world, right? I feel like I want to pause, Ms. Townsend, because there's some things coming in the chat. I'd love to accept them.
Yes. So major takeaway from Ms. Williamson, my major takeaway is not to use the overall score solely to make an assessment of a student, but to view the results in strands to see where the students need help. And Ms. Scott says, what methods to use when moving forward in teaching new topics and also using data assessment. And Ms. Myers says, through the use of data collection, a teacher is better able to plan for the needs of the students.
Wow. There are some powerful takeaways right there. Powerful takeaways. And I'm happy that these are things that you have taken from this aspect of the presentation so far. Truly appreciate the takeaways. So what I want to do now is look at the role of the teacher, but I'm going to start off by talking quickly. So the statement here is to share one aspect of your teaching approach that has been greatly altered due to the transition to online education. And you know what? While you think about your response, I will go first. So whenever I'm teaching students in the face-to-face world, I like to see their faces and to look at their expressions, because their expressions tell me a lot about whether they're understanding or they're following the lesson. Having shifted from face-to-face and gone to the virtual space, I am no longer able to see the faces of the students, and that affects me negatively because I used to rely heavily on my students' expressions in order for me to understand what is taking place in their minds. So that is my observation of what has affected me since I've shifted from face-to-face to online. All right. Now that I have shared, is there anyone else? Is there anyone at this time who want to share one thing that has really been altered for you as you shift from face-to-face to online? Anyone willing to share? You can raise your hand and just share it openly. Is there anything that has affected you? Okay, and Ms. Myers seemed to echo the same as for me. Great.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
No problem. Ms. Townsend, do you have any that affected you while others are preparing to share?
Well, I am going to share what I'm seeing in the chat before I speak. What I see, Janice Johnson is saying using manipulative effectively, and Jacqueline is saying the joy of being around the students. Okay, and I have Ms. Roberts saying participation from students. And Ms. Barnaby saying, I am unable to use manipulative fully to bring across concepts. And I have Mrs. Jennifer Lewis Blake is saying, we are also unable to peer students since they are apart. Ms. Sashalyn Allen, not being able to have students work together in groups. Okay, and Ms. Janice Simpson-Hales, being more verbally expressive and precise when communicating. And Ms. Patterson is saying, for me, it's how we can use the different items at home to teach different subject areas. And I have Miss, yes, and they're coming in here, you know, sir. Yes. Marsha Hutchinson saying working independently, and Mrs. Maitland, and I've seen the last name coming up so clear here for me, lack of participation, unable to use manipulatives.
Wow, wow, that's a lot right there. So for each of us, each person in this room right now, including myself, I know Ms. Tones, you have your own as well, right? There's something that would have been altered for you as a teacher, having shifted to the virtual space. And you know, that is understandable because truly it's new for all of us. And because it's new, it's gonna take some time for us to figure out how to readjust to this new way of life. Now, what I wanna do is take you through there are many roles, but there are three critical roles that I want to highlight for you today. For one, as an educator, you must be future focused. Now is the time to be future focused as we engage our students. We must be lifelong learners. We as educators must be ready and willing to learn new things because nothing will be the same again. We have to be ready to adjust and adapt. And then finally, we must be facilitators of learning. Now, these are not new expectations and roles, but these are just roles that we need to emphasize in the virtual space. Because we are now in this new space of learning, we need to find more innovative ways, so we must be future focused. At the same time, we need to be lifelong learners because we need to adjust our approach to teaching. And I can sit here and say to you now that I don't know everything. I don't have all the procedures and all the right steps, but I am willing to do the research because I need to ensure that my students, when I engage them, they need to still continue this path of learning. And it's okay to admit to self that, you know, I am not where I want to be in terms of teaching right now because this whole online thing is new to me. But you have the willingness and the heart to try to get to where you need to be. So let's share a few things quickly. So because we're in the virtual space, I think it is an ideal time for us to try new things. We need to try to push for more project-based learning. We look at probably the flipped classroom where the learning takes place or the research takes place at home for the student, and then the practice takes place in class with you. So you have to look at alternative approaches to ensuring that you have your students engaged. You want to ensure that the students are still left at the center of learning. So I'm going to walk you through an activity, and I just ask that you participate with me on this one, all right? So let us continue to use the chat. Let us continue to also speak, raising your hands and so on. So here we go. Let us say that you want to teach some concepts, and we're going to talk about the concepts after the activity. And we're going to pull on the baking of a vanilla cake. And I have on the screen to my left the ingredients to bake the vanilla cake. All right? So if it is that I want to bake a vanilla cake, I can ask you some questions and I want you to respond as promptly as possible in the chat. And for those who would like to speak, you can always, again, raise your hand. Ms. Thompson is ready to pick up on it. How many, based on the ingredients, how many vanilla cakes could be made from 1 dozen eggs? How many vanilla cakes can be made from 1 dozen eggs? All right, give you some time. If you need some time to look at the ingredients. All right, I see responses coming in. What is the overarching majority saying, Ms. Thompson?
Okay. So in the chat, I'm seeing 3 all the way. I'm seeing 3 being the response all the way.
All right. Is there one person who'd want to share, by opening the mic this time, of course, what you did to come up with your solution?
Good afternoon, 3 times 4.
3 times 4. I wish you'd say some more about that 3 times 4. Why 3 times 4? Just checking. All right, I think you responded and left. I think a hand is up, Ms. Townsend.
Okay, so in the chat, go ahead, Miss Dennis.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm going to take the role of a student here. What if the eggs are small and not large?
That's interesting. So, so I guess I have to follow up as a question. what would you do if you had small eggs instead of large eggs? As the teacher, I'd ask the student about that question.
Okay, so some eggs are small, miss, sir. Some eggs are very big. So if I have, let us say in the dozen eggs and I have 3 small ones, do I combine 2 to make 1 large egg?
And I'd ask another question now. If you took the 2 small eggs, would it be more or less than 1 large egg? I'd ask that question.
Sorry, good afternoon. Could I try?
Miss Wright, you can jump back in. Yes, you can try.
I'll break all the eggs in a container, then measure them equally.
Okay, okay, so you'd compare the small ones to a large one to ensure that it's more or less the same.
No, break all the 12 eggs in a container, then use a measuring cup to measure them equally.
Oh, that's an interesting approach, like an average. I get you fully, Miss Wright. I get you fully what you're doing in terms of an average. And that's quite an innovative approach. And I hope while I'm talking and you're sharing, you realize that my approach to responding to you is not to tell you yes or no to what you're asking me. I hope you realize at the same time that I'm actually asking you about the questions, because if you want the students to be the center of learning, the teacher saying yes or no disrupts the thinking process. The second I say yes or no, what happens to the student? The child is going to stop thinking. So I need to continue to push the thinking by asking more questions to see what the student will do. But thank you so far for sharing. Let's continue. How many cups would be needed to create 4 vanilla cakes? How many cups? I'll leave out something else. For how many cups? Yes, let me go again. How many cups of all-purpose flour would be needed to make 4 vanilla cakes?
4, sir.
Okay, and if you want to make 4 vanilla cakes, you said 4 cups of flour you said is needed. Could you share with me how you went about getting that response of 4? What did you do to get 4?
I must also say, sir, that in the chat, I am seeing a person saying 4 just before Miss Wright continues, and I'm also seeing 12. Miss Dawn Bram saying 12. Janique Morris says 12 plus. Kadina Roberts says 12.
12 plus more for the pan. I think I'm just seeing that one. Yes. Right. Yes, go ahead, Miss Wright.
Sorry, I made a mistake. I was supposed to say 3 times 4.
And you see, that is okay. That is okay. You see, if you make a mistake, that's fine. But I did not say to you that you were wrong, right? I asked you what you did. And you could have quickly gone back and said, but wait, I made a mistake. That is the type of modeling you need to have as a teacher as well in the classroom. Don't be quick to tell a child, no, you're wrong, or yes, you're right. No, question them further. So when I heard the 4, I said, all right, what is going on in your mind? Share. And then you were able to go back quickly and say, oh, just a mistake. That's right. You see how that works? So,
yes, I do. Because sometimes you're not quick to, as a teacher, you're not quick to just push it down on them. Give them time to, all right, then ask them a question. How did you get 4? Just as you did before, so that they can explain themselves.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Ms. Wright, for sharing.
You're welcome. All
right. Let's continue the process of asking questions. How many cups of sugar are needed to bake 2 vanilla cakes? This must be interesting now. How many cups of sugar are needed to make 2 vanilla cakes?
Okay, and we have Miss Jacqueline Johnson in the chat. She's saying 3 3/4. Oh, and then she says mistake. Okay. All right. So we have Letitia Taff who said 12.
All right.
Okay. Miss Foster said 2.5. Miss Lola Jackson 2.5. Johnny Simpson Hills 2.5. Cardell McLean 2.5. Miss Maris 2.5. Okay. Right. Marisha Tomlinson 2.5. All right. Dawn Bram 2.5. I'm seeing a lot of 2.5s.
So I take it then that 2.5 is the dominant response, right? And you know, if I was in the classroom and having a smaller group of students, it's 100 you know, but I would probably ask the ones who I'd ask everybody. So I'd ask for all the responses. So for example, you said that the 3 and the figure is a mistake, but I would still prod to know what happened so that the learner can revisit their approach to say, okay, I made this mistake the last time, so it means that I can know how to avoid that mistake in the future, right? But what I'm trying to bring to the table right now is the realization that you have to make the math relatable for the students. You have an ingredients list right here, and we're doing quite a few things right now. You know, we have touched on quite a few things so far, but let us see another question to see how we flow. What is the estimated amount of sugar in half of a vanilla cake? Getting deeper now. What is the estimated amount of sugar in half of a vanilla cake?
Okay, so Miss Jacqueline Johnson, 3/4 cups.
3/4 cups.
Cup, yes, 3/4 cup. That's what she has there. I also have Miss Cardell McLean Montague, 3/4 cup. Another 3/4 cup from Miss Foster. Okay. Miss Mars is asking for a repeat of the question.
What is the estimated amount of sugar in half of a vanilla cake?
Okay, I can share that Miss Janice Johnson has a half plus 1/8. Miss Janice Simpson Hales has 5/8.
All right, so let's stop there for now. For anyone who selected 3/4, please share your approach to getting 3/4. I'm really interested in the approach that you did, right? So let's share. For those who are saying 3/4, anybody would like to share with us now what happened? What did you do? So wait, teachers gone quiet on me. Remember, you know, the students in the class, you want them to talk as well, right? So let us model what we want them to do. So anyone who selected 3/4, I just want to hear what would have been your approach to get in the 3/4. Yes, Ms. Patterson, go right ahead.
How did you know, sir? I did not raise my hand. Anyway. Anyway, sir, what I like to do with my students is I like to say to them, okay, since we are finding out a half of it now, we would have used 1 1/4 cups of sugar for 1 cake. So now we're looking at half cake. So the first thing I would do is I would approach them and ask them 1 cake for 1 1/4, so a half. We would look at the 1 first and we would see that would be a half cup of sugar for that. And then I'd ask them, what is now a half of the 1/4 cup? So I'd have them do it in that segment. So, and if I was in the classroom or even online, I would probably get the cups of sugar and show it to them, break it down, show them a half of the 1 and a half of the 1/4, what it looks like, and then let them figure it out from there.
Thank you for sharing, Ms. Patterson. And I want to comment on what you're doing so far. And for me, I would take a little twist on it somewhere. Now, I'm going to talk to you quickly, colleagues, about 2 things. We have funneling and focusing. If I deliberately point them towards the half and the 1/4 separately, I am funneling the thinking. I am forcing them to think about the 1 and the 1/4. focusing is getting them to think about what they think they need to do. So there is a little danger to the funneling where, because you point them to the 1 1/4, they missed out on the opportunity of problem solving on their own. So I'm glad you shared, Ms. Patterson, because I got the chance to make that observation then. So colleagues, it's very important that we try not to funnel, but we try to focus. So you can ask them. I'm going to try and use Ms. Patterson's approach, but in a focusing way. So I ask, all right, students, if we want to find the estimated amount of sugar in half of the cake, what would you do? I'm starting very broad, right? That's a very broad statement, because if somebody can get there, they will come forward. Having realized that they cannot present me with a solution path, then I'll go a little closer. So by the way, how much sugar is contained in 1 vanilla cake anyway? They will have to be the one to tell me that's 1 1/4 cups of sugar, and not me pointing towards what is on the menu or what's on the ingredients list. Let me ask you though, are you following me, colleagues? You can probably type yes in the chat or no. If you're not following me on this, what I'm saying so far, just checking to say you're following me before I move on. All right, I see a yes. All right. So when I ask the question, how much sugar is contained in 1 vanilla cake, they must be the one to tell me that it's 1 1/4. All right. So if that much is in 1 vanilla cake, what would be the amount in half of a vanilla cake? By the way, how would you go about finding half of anything? So even though I am eventually getting closer to what they ought to do, I am not the one who is saying to them, hey, look at this 1 and look at this 1/4. But you are slowly inching towards it with them, but allowing them to go ahead of you before going directly to what you want to hit. All right? I hope that point was made. Ms. Patterson, how do you feel about that point? Sounds okay?
Sir, that's exactly what I do. I probably didn't explain it like you, but when I'm doing it, that's how I do it, sir.
That is fine, Ms. Patterson. That is so fine. Thank you so much for sharing, and I hope you continue to share. I'm looking out for you to continue to share. All right. Let's continue. All right. Right. And I like what Ms. Hayes is saying, right? In the whole idea of being patient during the learning process. So yes, there is a solution, but we want to be patient and allow the students to walk towards the solution and not us hurrying to take them there. But I take your point fully, Ms. Patterson. All right, colleagues, I'm going to throw, I think I have one more that I want to throw at you before we switch focus. And this one is really going to be a little deeper. So this is a deeper question before we move on. What is the lowest number of cakes that could be made from only whole number cups of milk? All right. If you're only allowed to use whole number cups of milk, what is the lowest number of cakes that you could make? Vanilla cakes that you could make? All right, so I'll go again. If you are allowed to only use whole number of cups, milk that is, what is the lowest number of cakes that you could make if you could only use whole number cups of milk? And just to be clear, probably shouldn't say it yet. I'll probably wait on the responses first.
Okay, so there's only one response so far in the chat, and I see one. Oh, they're coming in now. 1 from Miss Johnson. I have 5 from Simpson Hales. I have 4 from Donna Banks. Myers says 1. So we have variation in the answers there.
Okay.
So far we have 1, 5, and 4.
All right. Anybody care to explain what they did? So for those who selected 1, 4, 5, anyone want to share what's your approach towards using only whole number of cups of milk? How many cakes do you make? And just explain how you got your response. Yes, Ms. Johnson. Oh man, not here, Ms. Johnson at all. Oh, Miss Townsend, didn't hear Miss Johnson. I don't know what happened.
Yes, sir, I realize it.
All
Not
right.
sure what is happening there.
Okay. All right. Not working. It's fine. Anyone else want to try and share? The persons who selected, let's say 4.
So we may have to do what, you know, our teachers do sometimes. You know, we just call on the students.
Oh my.
You know, we just call on them.
I don't want to do it too soon, you know. We can't hit them too hard too soon, but let me call a name then. All right, Mr. Banks, what did you do to get your 4?
Yes, sir. All right. So it's 1¼ cup for 1 cake, right?
Right.
So I'm saying for 2 cakes, that's 2½.
Correct.
For 3 cakes, that's 3 3/4. And then for 4 cakes, we know that we reach a whole number.
Ah, I like your approach. That's a very interesting approach. I like how you just build on it, you know. So you said 1 cake is 1¼ cups. But then 2 cakes would be 2½. 3 cakes would be 3 3/4. And then the 4th cake would bring you up to what's that? 5, right? So for the person who got the 5, you got 5 cups of milk. I'm thinking that's the case, right? Is that the case?
Well, I do. We
Let me
did
allow.
have some 5 in the responses here.
All right, so Miss Foster, you want to share where you got the 5? How I think, you know, it's just as important what is considered to be the correct response, the wrong or the incorrect response, and the approach is just as important because it helps us to see how we are thinking and how we can adjust. Mrs. Hales, you want to also share you got your 5? Man, why everybody afraid to share the 5? All right, let me pretend like I got the 5 then, because no one wants to talk to me about the 5. So I got 5 then. If I got 5, what I'm thinking is I wasn't counting the cakes. I was counting the cups of milk. So if I count the cups of milk, I get 5 cups of milk. But 5 cups of milk gives me 4 cakes. So I would have made a little error in my response in that I gave 5 as the cups of milk and not 5 as the cakes. The 4 is actually the cake. And colleagues, we must be open to not just critique the response of those who are correct, but we need to also critique those who are incorrect as well. But guess what? When you allow students to openly critique what is incorrect, it helps them say, oh, I see what I was doing there. Anybody with me on that one? You can probably use the raise hand feature to tell me you're with me, or a thumbs up to see if you're with me.
I think they are, sir.
Okay.
Because Miss Foster would have also typed that she had 5 cups of milk, but 4 cakes. So right away, she would have put the 5, you know, as her
response. Thank you, colleagues. Now, as an educator in the virtual space, you need to also be lifelong learners. We are in a new space where we are trying to learn and maneuver how to teach. But as we do so, we must work on our content knowledge. We must work on our content. And we must also work on our teaching approach. What resources can I pull on to aid me as I deliver to my students? Now I'm going to start off with the content knowledge. Listen carefully to this. There are times throughout our life, as first students before teachers, we learned something a particular way, and we did it that way because we were told to do it that way. We become adults, we become teachers, and we are quite tempted at times to continue the path of doing things the way we were taught. And nothing is wrong with replicating how you're taught. But because over time students change, their needs also change. So please look at this carefully. We're multiplying rows and columns here going on. We're multiplying these two numbers, 241 multiplied by 23. Now, I want you to critique carefully what is going on. First thing first, let me know if this is the correct answer. Just let me know that first. You can probably say yes or no in the chat to say, yes, this seems okay. All right, just checking that this is first sound. So do a double check. If you multiply 241 by 23, will you get 5,543? Just confirm for me in the chat. All right. All right, so we're confirming. Now, I want you to tell me, anybody can tell me, I ask it in layman term, where does 0 come from? Anybody tell me, where this come from? Why is it here? I see a hand go up same time. Miss Townsend?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Miss Patterson. Go ahead, Miss Patterson.
Okay, sir. This 0 is here because I have already calculated my ones column. So I want to put the 0 there to hold that place so I don't mix it up. So it's a placeholder for my ones column, which I have already calculated.
Ah, it's a placeholder. You know, from when I was a child, I've always been told it's a placeholder. And I get that, but why is it a placeholder though? It's a placeholder. Why is it holding a place?
Because we already calculated that one's space with that one's column is already done. We use that one already. The place value chart, that one's column is already used up.
All right, question. How do you know it's a placeholder? I'll be honest with me. How do you know it's a placeholder?
Because I cannot, all right. Oh boy. How do I know?
Talk to me now. The first time I ever taught this is how you know someone put this here there. Tell me why. Tell me what happened.
Sir, I was taught that in school.
Okay, I love honesty. Some more hands are going up, but I love honesty.
Sir, yes. Sir, and the comments are flowing as well.
Good.
So I have Miss Johnson and Miss Dennis with their hands up, and also so let us start with Miss Johnson. Go ahead, Miss Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
The 0 there is a placeholder because she mentioned that she was start, and the 0 is the only number that you could use that when you add to the other number, the figure doesn't change, because if you use another number, then the figure would change. So 0 would have been the one to use as a placeholder, because when you're adding now, that significant number will come back down in the answer.
Thank you, Miss Johnson. Thank you. I'll take the feedback. I'll take it. It's not exactly what we're looking for, but we'll take it. Right? Thank you so much. Miss Dennis, I think. Miss Townsend, who said next?
Yes,
okay.
Miss Dennis followed by Miss Maris, right?
Miss Dennis, we're not hearing you.
Sorry. Okay, yes, so my thoughts are similar to that of Miss Johnson. I remember when I asked a teacher, why is it that 0 has to be the placeholder? Why it couldn't be 1? And her explanation was, well, it's because it's 0 used over time, so it's 0 you must use. But then when I went at another level of education now, that is when it was explained that 0 really represents that there's nothing there in that one's place. Because if you do put another number there, then the value of that there would change. So if you put a 1, then the value now becomes 4. If you put a 2, the value there will become 5, and then the answer would have been incorrect. So it's not really a placeholder per se, but it is just there, basically.
Just there. All right, thank you for sharing. Miss Myers, go ahead. And then
Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so I grew up hearing that the 0 is a placeholder, but really what I tell my children is that as the fact that we would have already worked the ones place to when multiplying the top number, in order for them not to be confused And actually, after actually using the number in the tens place or whatever would have been there, because it's not only a 2-digit number that we can multiply by, as we all know. Right. So I usually tell them that a 0 is placed there, so as for them not to place that first answer, that the product that they would have gotten after they would have multiplied by the number in the tens place. So that's
All
what
right.
I usually tell them.
All right, guess what now? Thank you for sharing, but guess what now? I'm going to hold further responses for now. We're going to leave the question and come back to it, right? So look at this now. I am going to push this to the side for a moment. I'm going to present to you another child's breakdown of the same question, and then we look to talk about where that 0 come from afterwards, all right? Let's go now. Let's say that this is what the child did instead. Please analyze it and tell me what is happening. Take your time and analyze it and tell me what's happening here. And this is not a conventional approach, so don't think that we're saying to you, do this instead. I'm not saying that. I'm just opening your thinking, and then we'll go back to what we did in the beginning, okay?
So the child is multiplying all the numbers by 3 because 3 is in the ones column, so he's going across with them one by one. 3 ones 3, 3 fours 12, and he's using his 0 in there too.
But wait, be careful now. So he said, what gave you the 3? 3 times what gave you the 3? Let's check it. 3 times the what you got?
You're hearing me, sir? I should have been muted.
Loud and clear, man.
Sorry,
loud and clear.
I'm just thinking out loud here, sir. Sorry.
Okay. Ms. Townsend, some hands are up. Let's take some responses.
Yes, yes, sir. So we have Horatio Tomlinson. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, colleagues. Interesting, this layout the child used. So from my perspective, it is he or she is going according to the place value, adding the zeros as they go in. So 3 times the 1 is 3. The placeholder 0 is used. Then 3 times 4 in the tens column, 3 4s give you 12. That's also with the 1 0 there, and 3 2s 6 and 2 zeros. Then the child repeated the pattern by going 2 1s 2 with the 0, and then 2 4s 8 with 2 zeros, and then 2 2s 4 with 3 zeros. A very interesting way of putting it. If you're not careful in this one, you will get very wrong, very last, very fast. But it's very interesting how it is laid out.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Thompson.
So we are going to go to Miss Johnson. Go ahead, Miss
Yes,
Johnson.
This child knows his or her place of value very well. In order for her or him to use this method, and I really like this method. It will be confusing if you do not know your place of value, like this child, but I do love this method.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have 4 more hands up, so we're going to be going next to Miss Jackson.
Yes, so I was realizing that it's not necessarily the placeholder of the 0, but that 3 in the 23 is in the ones place. So 3 times 1 is 3, and then 3 times 40 is 120, and 3 times 200 is 600, and then the 2 in the 23 is in the tens place. So 20 times 1 is 20, 20 times 4 is 800, and 20 times 200 is 4,000, and then they add up all the values to get 5,543.
That's exactly it. That is precisely it. Thank you so much. Well, let's continue with the responses though. I want to hear from the others.
Yes, because we still have 3 hands up, so we're going to go with Miss Mitchell.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Ms. Jackson said it all, but as I was going to say before, what students would ask with the 0, why did we start off with two in the 10th place and not the 1st place as we did with the 3? But Miss Jackson said most of what I had to say, so I'm just adding that.
All right, thank you. One more hand.
One more hand, and that's Miss Ellis. Go ahead, Miss Ellis.
Yeah. I feel I need to lower my hand because exactly what I was thinking, what she was saying, I was like, all right, let me see exactly what she was saying. So it really a case where placeholder came when a child understand placeholder. So I don't have anything to add. I could have lowered my hand already because exactly how I was thinking of it going forward.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. I think there's another hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, another hand, and that's Miss Dwyer. And I see Miss Ellis' hand is up again, so we'll take Miss Dwyer and then Miss Ellis.
Yes, and with the method that the student did it, you know that we were always told, or we were mostly told that we start multiplying with the number in the 1s place first. But even if you were to start with the 2 and did it the way that the student did it, you will still end up getting the same answer.
All right, thank you so much for that. Look at that. That is also true. So Miss Ellis is supposed to speak again? Or
Oh no,
yes?
oh no. I lowered my hand and then I click raise hand again. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay, that's okay. All right, colleagues. So now that we have done that, let's go back to the original state that we're in. So I asked the question earlier, where this 0 come from? Why is it here, right? And in all honesty, let me say to you, when I was in school, just like you, I was told it's a placeholder. And I was told how many placeholders to put where and when. So you see, I won't go around the corner with you. It is the truth. That's what I was told as well. But as we grow older, and as we become teachers and ready to encounter our students, we must be ready to do things the right way. So what I showed you, I'm not saying to you now, we must abandon this layout now, I'm going to do that, the next thing. I'm not saying that any at all. This layout is fine, but I'm sure if I ask the question now, why is this 0 here? Somebody can open the mic and tell me why. Why is this 0 here? Just check in, see if we still got it. Why is this 0 here?
All right, so I'm not sure if I'm correct, but I was thinking of multiple of 10, why it is there. Not sure.
Not sure. All right.
Not sure about it, but I was thinking of, the whole.
It has to be multiples of 10, but it was said earlier in the other breakdown.
Oh, sure. Yes.
So what's happening here is,
yeah.
I see a hand.
Yes, there is. Miss Mitchell, go ahead, Miss Mitchell.
As Miss Jackson said before, the 0 is there from the slide that was shown, because the 3, the 23, we're looking at the 23, right? The 3 is in the 1s place. So we basically put back the product in the 1s place right there, which is 3. The 2 now is in the 10th place. So when we're multiplying the 241, we start off in the 10th place. The 10th place, sorry.
And that 2 there now, that 2 is actually a 20. So what we're really saying is 20 times 1 is 20. And that's why you put down the 2 and the 0 together. The 0 that we call the placeholder is only there because 20 times 1 is 20. So being in the 10th place is going to cause your result to be a multiple of 10, like Miss Ellis said. But in this case, because the 10th place is one multiple of 10, you end up with 1 0 because it is 20 times 1 that gives you 20. All right?
And,
colleagues?
We would have,
yes,
sorry, sir, we would have seen in the chat where persons would have been making similar comments that we're multiplying by 20, that is because of the place value. Would have also seen a breakdown to say 241 times 2 times 10 coming out in the chat as well.
Nice, nice, nice. So the point that I want to make here, colleagues, is when we are taught something and we are about to go and teach, we are now the teachers of mathematics, we must first ask ourselves, do we know why we are doing what we are doing? And then if the answer is no, we need to go and do the research so that the next generation of students can come up knowing beyond what we tell them but understanding why it's there in the first place. And again, I can raise my hand to say that I am one of the students who would have been told that it's a placeholder, and I walk with that right through and through until I became enlightened, all right? So I hope that you are now enlightened on that, and it should spark the interest to begin to ask more questions for yourself later on. So as I move on to the next phase.
Just before you move on,
yes, go ahead,
sir, I think Miss Johnson is asking you if you could just go over that part of why the 0. I think Miss Johnson would have missed that.
Okay, no problem. I'll repeat it. So we get that we had 23 is our number, right? So we have 3 in the ones, 2 in the tens place. So it's 23. So it's 3 times 1, which gives you the 3. The 3 times the 4 is not 3 times 4, actually 3 times 40, really. So in that case, because you're multiplying by a power of 10, you put that down as usual there. So 3 times 241 is 723. But that part is okay for everybody. The next part now that it gives the challenge is when we say 2 times 1 with a placeholder, it's not 2 times 1. It's actually 20 times 1. That 2 is actually 2 tens. So because it's 2 tens, 2 tens times 1 will give you, again, 2 tens. So you must represent that accordingly. So you put the placeholder 0 there because it's a multiple of 10, and in this case, it's the first multiple of 10. 20 times 1 is 20. So you need a 0 there to reflect that you have 20 down there, all right? And likewise, if I multiplied, for example, the 4 and the 2, it's actually 20 times 40. 20 times 40 gives you what? 800. Look at where the 8 is. The 8 is in what? The hundredths place. You see that? 20, 2 times 2 is not just 4 in this case. It's actually 20 times 200. 20 times 200 is actually 4,000. Where's that 4? In the thousands place. All right? Miss Hilton, you want to say something? No? All right, so let's move on. So outside of looking at, there's a hand, Ms. Patterson, go ahead, and then I'll move on.
Sir, I wanted to ask a question. What
Sure.
if I have a student who would, could you go back to the numbers, please? What if I have a student who decides to break it apart because he or she gets confused? So like 241, and the child would put times 3 and then 241 times 20.
That's fine.
Should that be encouraged?
Yes, we must encourage students to do what is logical and efficient for them. What is efficient for us might not be efficient for a child. And we want to move away from teaching students procedures that, hey, I want you to do this because this is what I want to do. It must be do what is logical and efficient for you. And if a child multiplies 241 by 20 and then 241 by 3 and add it together, it tells me that this child will have no challenge later on when it's time to do factorization at a higher level. That child is ready for higher level.
Sir, I always cuss out my daughter about this because she's always doing it. And I'm always telling her it's because she's lazy. But looking at what you just did, it prompted me to ask the question because she's always doing that.
She's conceptual. So from now on, when you see her, don't call her lazy, call her conceptual. All right? All right, colleagues. The next place I want to take you quickly is to our virtual resources.
There is another hand, sir.
Yes.
Go ahead, Miss Ellis.
Okay. So it was just a comment though to add to what Mr. Edgehill said, that what I do is that I realize that because I always that there's no one way to work a math problem, you know. You can work it however you want to work it, and I work at different. So what I do, I encourage the students that hey, all right, let me see what you have, right? And let me show you what I have and show them from my perspective and their perspective. And so I think it's really good that you say to encourage what they have so that, because maybe they're confident and sometimes you can drop their confidence in it, because you're like, oh, hey, every time that they do something, it's like you shoot them down. So, and we already know, they already have it in your head that, hey, math is hard. So it's for you to make it in such a way that it is easy for them and encourage whatever they bring to you. So that's just my piece.
Well said, Miss Ellis, well said. Well appreciated as well. Colleagues, the next phase of being a lifelong learner is that you need to know how to search for what you want. I will tell you that I just took 30 minutes out of my day to Google search some resources, and I found these. And I'm going to present to you what I found in 30 minutes. So, and I'll ask Ms. Townsend to share in the chat the 3 links. I think I shared 3 links to these same sites that you can take and look at for yourself. I found a protractor. And you know that students still need to learn to measure things. Can you imagine you are in your virtual class teaching and you say to the parent and the student, have your protractor on standby at home, or at least come to the same website. And with the same website, I want you to now begin to measure the angles that are provided here and record it in the little calculator to the right. So using this app, we can actually have students learn how to measure angles. So we have the 2 rays here, right? And the protractor is actually situated at the vertex of these 2 rays. Now look carefully with me. To the right and to the left, you realize that we have 2 sets of numbers. We have 0 and 180 on both ends. Now, when I teach map reading to high school students, what I struggle with is that they want to put the protractor like this, flat on. When for my lesson, I need the protractors to look like this. But guess what? Every time they use a protractor, it's always like this. We need to support students in maneuvering their resources. We need them to be able to use their resources effectively. So if I want to measure this, I would get my students to actually measure it from both sides. If I pull my protractor to the left and align the base with the first ray, bam, it changes color from red to orange. It tells me that I'm in line. I have 2 starting points. I have 0 and I have 180. Which one do I follow? Students not often struggle with knowing which angle to look at. And in this case, because my first ray begins at 0, if I follow that number around, I realize that I get 10 degrees as my angle. I can always take the same protractor and pull it to the other side and align it with the other ray. Once it lines up nicely, the first time I did it, my 0 was on the inside of the protractor. Now my 0 is on the outside. So I follow the 0 around to 10 degrees. I can just go here and type in my 10, and I can submit it. Look at that. The actual answer, my answer, and there we go. I was precise in what I did. And if I change the angle, I can continue to pull my protractor from both ends, of course, to measure the angle. If I do this, I'm seeing something here. It looks like about, this is around what? 18, around 18 degrees, thereabout. And I submit, and there you go. I'm doing well. So I am using this now as an example to let you know that there are resources. There's no magical site that I selected. I did a Google search and I found this, 30 minutes. So you need to get into the act also of doing the same thing. It's a free resource. Let's keep going. I also found this. I found some fraction walls, and if it's not posted in the chat as yet, Ms. Townsend will post in the chat for you as well, where I can always look at fractions in terms of decimals. I can look at it in terms of percentage. If I change the percentage, I get these instead. It's going to change shortly to percentage. I have percentage blocks, 100%, 50%, 25%. I can do comparisons, 25%. See, I'm having 2 of these give me 50. I can actually change from percentage to decimal, or if not decimal, I can go from decimal to fraction. So if I want to compare numbers, 0.5 obviously based on the size, is much larger than 0.123. Some students struggle to see that 0.5 is actually larger than 0.123 because 0.123 contains more digits. So these are the simple resources that you could pull on at any time to use when teaching your lesson. What if I want to do equivalent fractions and I decide to put 2/3 up here? Then I want to be able to put fractions that will balance with the one on the left. So I can see clearly that 2/3 is equivalent to what's this, 4/6. And then I could always remove these and I can note that 1/2 is equivalent to 3/6, right? So it's just pulling on the resources. And wait, there's more. Let us say I have this apparatus working with. I found this one on Gizmos. You just need to sign up for Gizmos and you're good to go. And again, Ms. Townsend, I think you already shared it, but they're in the chat. The links to the same sites. So if I want to do an experiment, I could always go and take out my instrument here. I can turn on the pipe and fill up the container with water. As you can see, the water is rising. I can slow down the rate at which the water is rising so I can bring it right to where I want it to stop. I want it to stop at 400 milliliters. Let's get creative. I can take this and put this below. Let us see if we can find the volume of this ball. If I drop the ball inside the container here, I'm sure you expect, you can ask the students too, if you drop the ball in this container, what do you expect to happen if the ball is heavy? And the students may respond and say that, boy, water will be displaced. Let me ask you, looking at what is here right now, you are seeing that some amount of water came out of this container. How much water came out, I'm not sure. At a glance, it looks like 25 milliliters, but guess what? Let me transfer the water to another container so I get a better reading. Pour it out into this container, everything. Look at that. I thought it was 25 ml from this container, but looking at this container, it actually looks like it is, what's this, 26, yeah, about 26 ml. So there's so much that you can do if you experiment what you have. Or if I don't want this, I could always use another container, fill it to a particular level. Let's say I stop it at 50 ml. 50 seems fine. That's too much. I don't want to get too technical now. All right, 60 it is then. And I take up a rock. I don't have much space left. Let me put everything back on the shelf. If I take up this rock, if I drop the rock inside the container, I expect that it should displace the water a bit. It was at 60 ml. Now it is at 68 ml. What is the volume of this rock in milliliters? So what I'm getting at here, colleagues, is there's so much that we can do with just going online and Google something. Like I said, I took 30 minutes to Google these things and I created an account for myself on Gizmos. So colleagues, this is the statement that I wrote. I typed in my search engine, free virtual math manipulatives. And I found these things from just doing this simple sentence. I was able to find resources that I can pull on, right? So colleagues, I just want to use this as a means to encourage you. There are resources out there. Beyond just using a PowerPoint to teach a lesson, there are resources online that you can go and look for and incorporate in your lesson as best as possible, right? So I hope that this little walkthrough will encourage you, right, to go and do your own searches so that you can get the resources for your students to enrich your class experience, all right? Are there any comments before I move on? Just quickly asking if there are any comments, anything you want to say before I move on, and to give you the opportunity to speak. If you need to say anything. How are we feeling about the resources? Do you plan to use any of them in your class? Will you be prompted now to do some more search for free resources that you can pull into your math lessons? I see a hand, Ms. Townsend.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Miss Gabrielle.
Yes, I just want to say that I teach like usually upper school math, and one of the resources, I'm not sure if you guys mentioned it, but it's Delta Math for Delta Math. That's another very good one.
Delta Math. Colleagues, you heard that? Delta Math.
Delta Math and Nearpod. I find those two very, very good.
Thank you so much. Could you just type them in the chat so that others can pull on it as well?
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much. So colleagues, you see, we have means by which we can go and tap into resources towards helping our students as we teach them, all right? So please be encouraged. Now, the next phase of what we want to talk about is the fact that the teacher, as a teacher, you must be a facilitator of learning. Now, even though we are no longer in the physical classroom, we're in the virtual space, you still need to allow students to explore and to find ways of, getting across their concepts by doing an activity to help them to better understand. With that said, I'm going to share with you, of course, a made-up conversation between student and teacher. So let us say that the teacher is engaging the student in a little WhatsApp chat, right? And in this WhatsApp chat, the student starts off on the left and the teacher is on the right, all right? Probably we can get some help here. Ms. Townsend, please help me to read. All right.
Okay.
I will be student and you will be the teacher, okay? I'm on the left, you're on the right. So, Miss, I am trying to convert 2.5 to an improper fraction, but I am not remembering what to do.
Really?
Oh.
Okay, really? Just multiply the whole number by the denominator and add it to the numerator.
Okay, miss. So I multiply 2 and 2 and then add it to 1.
Right. Then that.
Yeah, she said then what? Anyway, sorry, it's my fault. Typo on my part. I got 5, miss.
Okay. Just put it over the denominator.
5 over 2.
Great job.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Townsend, for helping me to read this. Colleagues, having listened to the conversation, how do you feel about this conversation between the teacher and the student? Do you think that the teacher would have allowed the student to really discover what needs to be done? How do you feel about this interaction between teacher and student? I see a resounding no, sir, in the chat. Anyone want to comment on it? Anyone wants to comment on the interaction? Let me bring back the other slide so you can see what was said before.
Okay.
I see Ms. Tomlinson is saying.
In the chat,
go ahead.
sir.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Townsend.
Yes, Ms. Tomlinson is saying funneling. Mrs. Hales is saying just procedure, no concept. Miss Myers is saying no. Mrs. Brown is saying she was telling instead of allowing him to find out for himself. Ms. Haslam is saying it's a procedural approach, not conceptual.
All right, so that's not conceptual at all. Let's do a double take now, Ms. Townsend. Let's go again. But this time we have changed the scenario a bit. So I'm still the student. All right, so let's go. Same question. Miss, I'm trying to convert 2.5 to an improper fraction, but I'm not remembering what to do.
Okay, let's talk about it. What do you remember an improper fraction to be?
Well, I remember it's being a fraction where the numerator is larger than the denominator.
Okay, so could you give me an example of an improper fraction?
Yes, miss. 4/3.
Is that how we name our fractions?
4/3, miss.
Could you explain what 4/3 is? Or could you do a drawing to represent it?
4/3 means I have 1/3 4 times. And there's a drawing of the 4/3 1 time, 1/3 4 times. Let's continue. Back to you, teach.
So based on what you have, do you remember how to convert?
I think so, miss. So 2.5, I know that there are 2 halves in a whole. So I multiply the 2 by the 2 so that it's 4 halves. But I already have 1 half. So I add it to the 4 and get 5 halves.
Great job.
All right, thank you, Ms. Townsend. Colleagues, how do you feel about this conversation this time around? I think there's a comment in the chat.
Yes, that comment came a little earlier, where Ms. Williams was saying, you know, you're right, allow the child to use diagram. So that would have been from the previous case, the previous conversation.
No problem.
Okay, Ms. Haslam is saying wonderfully done. Okay, Ms. Tomlinson, this is focusing.
I like how Ms. Tomlinson does come on and just catch
Mr. Sorry, Mr. Tomlinson, Mr. Tomlinson.
Mr.
Yes,
Tomlinson,
sorry about that.
Sir, thank you for coming on and picking up on the difference between focusing and funneling. Well done, sir. All right. So, colleagues, what I want to bring across to you is the importance of remaining conceptual. I think there's some more comments coming.
Yes, there is more here from Ms. Maris who's saying teacher took the correct approach in getting the student to understand the lesson. And Mr. Tomlinson, we are lifelong learners.
Indeed, indeed, we are. All right. So, colleagues, I really want to emphasize certain points that we have to look at our approach to delivering to our students in the virtual space. But before I shift focus to the next arc, and we're not going to be longer, we will be wrapping up shortly. So just tell me, anyone, via the chat or at least opening the mic through the raise hand feature, what is your major takeaway from this aspect of the session?
Okay, in the chat I'm seeing so far just a few comments from the last bit of conversation. Right. As we wait for the other comments to come in, just that the teacher was facilitating the student and that the teacher used previous knowledge to guide the student. And Ms. Williams is also saying, yes, sir, our approach is extremely important. So Ms. Dennis now, so I think it's back to the major takeaway. We must aim to teach a student and not the content.
Well said. Well said. Well said. All right, colleagues. So let us push on. Let us push on. So we're going to move to this next phase of our presentation. I see the environment looking like it's going to rain, but if it does, we will push on. We trust God to guide us through this process. And we have done so much so far. So we'll go for as far as we can go as the weather condition allows us to. So this part is modeling expectations while in the virtual classroom. What you do as a teacher is critical, important towards how students will learn, even so in the virtual classroom as well. I am going to project a series of statements. And if this statement fits you, you can probably use a thumbs up, the thumbs up reaction, or just type yes in the chat based on how the statement fits you. 1, I updated my Google Classroom themes and had opening or welcome messages for my students. So the school year just started. Are you one of the teachers who you updated your theme on your Google Classroom and you have some opening message for your students and you do all that? All right, I see a few yeses in coming up.
And a few thumbs up, sir, as well.
And a few thumbs up as well. Great, great. All right, let's look at the next one. Let's see if anybody is guilty. I dressed up, opened my camera, and greeted my students on the first day of school.
Okay, I'm seeing several thumbs up going up, and yes is in the chat as well.
Okay, great, great. I love that. So it means that our teachers have been modeling what you expect going forward. I love this. Let's keep going. I log into my sessions on time. We log in on time. We don't go 10 minutes after. Right? We don't go in 10 minutes after the session and then the students log on and don't see you and they're gone with their business. Students not going to stay.
Series of yeses, thumbs up, and of course I have an always.
I want always. All right, so it means that our educators are on the ball with what they're supposed to do. Let's keep going. I reviewed my class rules and expectations with my students. So on the first day or within the first week, you had a little talk with them, what is expected of them, the rules of the class, how the class is going to work.
Yeses and thumbs up all the way, and parents too.
Wow, you see, even the parents are pulling at them, no, these are my expectations from the parents. All right, I love that. I love that. All right, let's see. I shared with my students what they will be learning for the next week or 2 weeks or weeks or month. You would have at least shared with them what is coming ahead for this particular series of topics to be covered. All right, I see next day, I see yes 2 week. All right, so, all right. Outline is provided. Ms. Townsend?
Yes, I see outline for the term, week, not month. I said another person saying next day as well as yes for the week.
Great, great, great. Share the entire syllabus too. Even yes, I think the older students can manage that. The younger ones might just need a series of days, but not or the week or so on. But the older ones can manage the syllabus. Right. So it tells me that our teachers have been playing the part and playing the part well. And for those who have not yet been doing this, you need to start. We need to be beyond just getting up and, you know, we're not putting ourselves together for class. Our students need to see our faces. They need to see our smiles. They need to see us and be able to say, yes, there's my teacher. I can feel a connection because I can see my teacher. Not just the screen or the 2 letters of your name or your full name, or see the microphone icon shaking, but to see your face and be able to say, yes, there's my teacher. I'm enthused. I want to come to class. Right? Here's the final one. I go to my classes with high energy and excitement. You don't walk into class, can't bother. Students, turn to page so-and-so in the textbook. That can't be it. You have to go in and you greet them nicely. And after you greet them, you let them know what they're going to do today. You probably ask them how they're doing. Right? Right.
I must say that Mr. Johnson did it when I drink coffee.
So if his coffee takes, then his coffee is going to take, but we need to do it, right? We need to have the high energy because guess what? If we don't have the energy, you cannot expect the students must come to you with energy. That's going to lead me now to my next point, where we talk about the promotion and the maintenance of the desire to learn. But as we get into this right now with our students, and for those who need to get the coffee for the mornings, please buy yourself the coffee because the classes must be exciting. So I want to have a little talk with you, but let us start by you selecting a number. So on the far left, we have the statement, it is the student's responsibility to be motivated, and that's at a 1. On the extreme right at a 7, it is the teacher's responsibility to motivate students. If you were to select a number that tells you where your position is between these two statements, which number would you choose? Put a number in the chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which number best represents you and your thoughts?
Okay, I see Mrs. Brown 6, Miss Johnson 7, Miss Williams 7, Miss Jackson 6. All right, Miss Bram 7, Tomlinson, Mr. Tomlinson 5, Miss Williams 7, Miss Cole. So we're seeing a repeat of the 7s and the 6s. I have Miss Dwyer says 4, and Miss Patterson 7, Miss Taft 6. So we're seeing a repeat of the 7s. Quite a few persons that are 7s and 6s.
All right, good, good, good. I'm liking the responses so far. So probably we should take some responses. We have as low as 4 and as high as 7, right? So I probably don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if you're willing to, let me not select a number. Anybody who would like to speak freely on the matter, could you just state your number and explain why you chose that number? So you're allowed to raise your hand and share for those who are willing to share.
Okay, Miss Dwyer wants to share, and she'll be followed by Miss Patterson. Go ahead, Miss Dwyer.
So I selected 4 because I believe that it's both a responsibility for the teacher and it's a responsibility for the students. We must try our best to make them feel motivated, but as my granny would say, you can't carry a donkey go well, but you can't force him to drink. So if the donkey is not motivated to drink, he won't drink. So it has to be, some motivation has to come from the students and some from the teacher.
I respect your approach indeed. It's 50-50 for you. Thank you so much for sharing openly.
Ms. Patterson, go ahead.
Okay. I chose 7, and I chose 7 because even though we know that some students are, they can motivate themselves, they are intrinsically motivated, and some of them have good parental support and can be motivated from their parents, we the teachers need to be motivators, because the same way that students can motivate themselves and push themselves, if we don't do our part, they will get demotivated, and we want to keep the energy going. We want to keep it going. And just to cite a little example, when I started classes last week, I realized that I wasn't getting through to some of my students, and some of the students that I realized came over to me with very high grades. They were not pushing. So I said to myself, what can I do to get these students to really push along to come to classes on time? So what I did was I developed right away a chart on Friday. And Friday after my last session, I posted the chart in Google Classroom, in my WhatsApp group, and on my WhatsApp status. When I did that, a lot of students started asking, Miss, what must I do to get on that star chart? And I say to them, show up for class early, finish your work and submit it on time, and keep your mic muted and all of these things. And I gave them my criteria to getting on the chart. And guess what? This week, I have all the students, they're coming in on time. Sometimes they reach there. When I log in, I see one student there already. And I'm saying, oh, you're early. Said, Miss, I want to get on that chart next week. So we must never take it for granted that these students, they don't want to be motivated. They need the motivation. And as much as a little star, as much as a little thumbs up, it goes a far way. And just to add, I don't want to take up the time, but just to add one more thing, dressing up and going in front of your students and meeting them is very important. On the first day of school, I did it. And when I did it, I did not tell one student in my class to put on their uniform. But the next day, students came in their uniforms, and they came in their uniforms because they saw that I was all dressed up and I presented myself to them as a teacher. So the next day, they came in uniforms, and more of them keep putting on their uniforms to come to class. And that was not a criteria that I gave them.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, we still have 2 hands in the chat. We have Miss Dennis, who will be followed by Miss Gabrielle. Go ahead for me, Miss Dennis.
Okay, I have a 7 because first of all,
Oh, Miss Dennis, I think we lost Miss Dennis there.
That's her voice.
Yes.
Not sure what happened. Oh man, sorry, Miss Dennis. I hope it comes back up so you can speak. But we're not hearing you right now. So is it Miss Gangahar? You can help me with the pronunciation if I've butchered it in any way.
Ganga and Dar. Gangadhar.
Gangadhar. Oh, it's a D. Gangadhar. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes, I do agree with both teachers that spoke before. I think teachers need to understand the internal and the external factors that are affecting students' motivation. Because sometimes parental factors in the home, emotional factors and all of that. So we have to get a grasp of what is happening and then address those. So I like what the previous teachers said. And I like the idea of putting a star chart. And in my lesson, sometimes I will use like a Bitmoji and, stuff like that. Anything that can just motivate them. Yeah, so I believe it's the teacher's responsibility to help the students to reach the goal of being self-motivated by addressing those internal and external factors.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And I mean, I can appreciate all responses, truly. There is the expectation that students ought to be motivated. And I think it's a plus when they are. But from a realistic standpoint, like I just said, there are so many factors that will prevent a child from being motivated, right? And if it is that they don't come with that energy, what do? We have to see how best we can motivate them where they lack the motivation. And if they come with motivation, let us see how best we can maintain and build on the motivation that they come to us with, right? So there's a lot that we can take away. So with all that we have done and said so far, I'm about to now wrap up as we close off the session. But I want to know, what are your major takeaways as it pertains to just being that teacher who's ready to model the whole idea of opening the camera, being ready for class, setting rules, motivating students? What is your major takeaway from this before we get into our last phase of what we're sharing this afternoon?
Okay, so there were some comments in the chat while you were speaking earlier. So I will just go with those while we wait for the others to come in. And we have that teachers must always motivate the students and encourage other students to do so for a job or discussion well done. And Ms. Dennis also said that the students reciprocate the teacher's energy.
Interesting. I like that. I like the responses, especially the one about students reciprocating energy. They truly do. If we come with weak energy and we're dragging ourselves in, they're gonna drag themselves across your lesson. And believe me, they will. So thank you for sharing, teachers. It's truly been an enlightening session so far. So we're on the final leg and we're gonna finish off shortly. So I won't be laboring some of these points. I'll just ensure that I just share with you briefly and point you in the right direction. So in terms of lesson planning, we can't overemphasize the fact that there are a series of practices that we want you to know of. It's very important, and I'm going to ask that you, in your own time, begin to read up on these. It would be good if you can read up on the standards for mathematical practice. I won't try to push the session any further than it currently is, but I just want to encourage you to read up on the following. So the math practices are those things that your students need to be doing while in your class. So in the virtual classroom, you want your students to be able to persevere as they solve problems. You want your students to be able to extract quantitative values from a situation, such as a context, and be able to represent them well. You want your students to have viable arguments. You want them to have conversations with each other so that they can critique, listen to what others are saying, agree, disagree, and explain themselves. You want them to be able to model the math in terms of being able to draw, represent, do tables, graphs, diagrams to represent how they're thinking. And some of these things came out in the earlier activities that we did today. I want to talk about being able to use the tools. So for example, the virtual protractor. Can the students use the protractor to measure angles, right? Can they use the beaker to pour water and to measure the volume of liquid contained in a container, or to be able to measure displacement? Then there's also this very important one, attention to precision, where the students, what they say is precise. How they draw, it's actually accurate. The words that they use, they are appropriate. So it's not just top number, miss bottom number. It's more of numerator and denominator, right? Them using the right terminology. Students being able to look for patterns and structure, and from their pattern search, being able to come up with an approach that works. Remember, Miss Pattinson, you have a daughter who you said now is going to be a conceptual child. So being able to look for patterns and making things work for her. And then using those patterns to come up with a generalization. Those are all important elements. I'm going to ask that you also read up on the effective mathematics teaching practices, where this now is for the teacher. And with the teacher, they will be the ones to really bring across these ideas. I'll just say it and then I wrap up. So you want the teacher to establish goals. As a teacher, you want students to reason more. You want them to be engaged in problem solving. As a teacher, you want them to draw more and represent their thinking so you can understand it. You want to have more discussions with your students, have them talk to each other and share their ideas. You want to be the one to ask them questions. Remember earlier in the activity I did where the teacher asked me a question and I just kept asking back questions? You have to ask questions to prompt thinking and to inspire action. And you need to move beyond procedures, but to build the procedure from conceptual understanding, ensure that students can understand for themselves and then generate their own procedures, right? And in doing this, you must be able to facilitate and support productive struggle. The student will struggle, but it's not a bad struggle. It is struggling towards learning. And we cannot look down on struggling, right? We must utilize it as a tool as well. And finally, you need to ensure that you elicit the student's thinking. Colleagues, there's much that we have done today. There's a lot that we have done in our session. I realized that the time did not allow me to complete all that I wanted to, but I believe that we have achieved a whole lot in today's session. So I just want to thank you for what it is that you have been doing so far with your students. And I want to encourage you to be ambassadors in your own cause, as well as to ensure that you engage students in a conceptual manner. And we're going to quickly share my screen with you again to share with you my resources from the math team. The Region 5 math team have for you some resources, virtual resources. Ms. Townsend will post the link in the chat, so you can copy the link and it will take you to our resource bank where you can find lesson plans and other PowerPoint and resources that you can use on a day-to-day basis. I want you to also note that there is also the Jam Learning resource that you can go and get resources as well to teach and use in your lesson. Colleagues, we truly appreciate what you have done so far for your students. And I am here saying to you that I would really appreciate your feedback. So please fill out our evaluation form. Ms. Townsend will post it in the chat so that you can click on it and go straight to evaluation form. Or if you have a QR scanner, you can scan the QR code on the screen. Colleagues, it was a pleasure being here with you this afternoon. I really love the engagement. I love the interaction. And I know that as teachers, you are going to make a difference in your classroom. You're going to take up all that was done today and try to infuse it in your own way into your classroom so that it can engage and enrich your students. I'm happy that you stayed up until this point, and look out for further sessions. We will continue to engage you in this manner. We look forward to hearing from you. You can reach out to us here at the team as well in the ministry. And we really just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and all the best to you, teachers, as you continue to traverse this difficult time. All right? Thank you so much and all the best. I'll keep this on the screen a little longer so that you can get the link. Ms. Townsend, remember to just repost the link again. Please copy out what you want from the chat before we close out, and have for yourself a wonderful rest of the evening. All right, colleagues, I hope you were able to copy the information from the chat that you needed. Let me say this first. I'm about to close the session. Are you through copying what you need? I don't want to close and you're not finished copying. Just let me know if you still want to copy some more things before I click end on the Zoom session. All right. All right, no response. So it means that you have taken what you want from the chat. All right, colleagues. Thank you and all the best.